As I cut just enough off of that so that it doesn't kink. I just took a little bit of length off of it. Probably should have taken a little bit more, but that's okay. See how it's making a little corner there and it doesn't like it? I should take some off this back end, but I'm afraid, honestly, I'm afraid if I do that, that old hose may not fit as well on that fitting, because that's old hose and it's not as flexible as it was when it was young, and that end's big enough to go over that nipple. I don't know if it's going to be big enough to do it here, so I'm going to go with that. There's no direct kinks in it. Looks like it's going to go. So we should see when we apply vacuum by turning the key on and hitting the starter button, the engine will suck on that valve with vacuum and we should see fuel starting to go through that filter. I'll go ahead and turn the choke on just so in case we do get enough fuel in there it can pop. It'll go ahead and run. So this thing should take 8 or 10 seconds to fire up and fill the bowls, and we'll go from there. Yep, there's the gas starting to fill the bowls. It should start. There we go. There it is. There we go. So now you got gasoline in the bowls and it's running on the choke. Yep, one of them's dying, one of them's coming in, one of them's dying. So it's typical that they will flutter until they get a good level fuel supply. You got a little bit dry float needles, might be flooding for a second. Everything's not lubricated. All those parts I put in a carburetor are bone dry. Needles can stick, floats can stick, parts can't move. But once everything gets wet and running, it should smooth right out. Alright, I'm going to turn the choke off and see if it stays idling on the pilots. There we go. That's choke off. Hear how it idles up? It shouldn't do that. That's out of adjustment. The reason it's doing that is because you remember when I set the idle adjustment and the synchronization on the carbs, when I showed you in the video prior how to, you know, make sure you had a little bit of daylight in there, and I said it'll probably idle high, we'll have to turn it down. As soon as I turned the choke off and it leaned out to a good mix, now it's idling high. So all I gotta do is turn the idle down, we should be gold. There's a little bit of smoke and unburned fuel from where it was rich burning out of the pipes. It'll do that for a few miles till everything gets heated up. Let's go ahead and turn the idle down now. Okay. Alright, well, I got some pilot screw adjusting to do. You see how when I turn the idle up high, it'll run real high. And then if I turn the idle down a little bit, it'll come down and then want to stall. And I can't find that good balance. The reason I can't find that good balance is because the idle mixture screws are out of adjustment. So I got to reach up in there with some real small little flat blade screwdrivers, do some adjustments, turning those idle, air idle mixture screws to get the right amount of fuel flow at idle in each of the carburetors. I'll adjust the left and the right independently. The way to do that is the way to do that is you turn the screw in on one cylinder. You get a decent idle, maybe a little bit. You let it idle a little high till you get it running smooth. You turn the screw in and restrict flow. When you turn that screw in, you're cutting gas off, because this one doesn't mix air, it mixes fuel. That screw doesn't adjust air, it adjusts fuel. So you turn the screw clockwise in as you face up on it, and that'll cut the gas flow off. You keep going until it can't run, and you back off a little bit. Then you do the other cylinder the same way, back off a little bit. That's a nice lean, crisp setting. And then you try to adjust your idle from there. That usually takes care of the problem. If it doesn't, then you back off a half a turn on each one, give it a little more gas, and do it again, and then you're done. But you do adjust those screws independently. You go ahead and listen for how it affects idle and changes the mix on one cylinder, and you do it on the other. You kind of go back and forth till you get each cylinder where it wants to be. Now that's not changing synchronization. Synchronization is the position of the throttle blades. We looked at that when we had the carbs off. I'm not changing that, okay? I already synced these carbs. I put them right next to where they're both perfectly closed at the exact same time. I'm not messing with that. Yeah, I could get the vacuum gauges out and do all that stuff like I would if it was a big V4. I'm not doing it. But that's not the problem. The problem is mix. So I'm going to adjust the mix screws, play with them left, play with them right, turn them in until it goes down, until the idle wants to die, then back off a little, do the same thing on the other cylinder, turn the idle down, because as I improve the mix, the idle will start going higher and higher and higher and higher, because it's burning cleaner and better, which gives you more power, which gives you higher idle. So as I get the mixture screw adjusted correctly, I'll have to turn the idle down. As I get it improved a little bit more, I'll have to turn it down a little bit again. You know it's running good, you know it's running smooth, when you have a nice, clean, crisp idle, that when you whack the throttle, it takes full throttle without dying. That's how you know your idle circuit's flowing enough gas. If you do whack the throttle from idle and it kills the engine, you need more fuel flow. You got to open up the mixture screws or put bigger pilots in. It needs more gas down low. But you know it's running perfect when it idles low and smooth with no stumbling, and you whack the throttle and it takes the full amount of whacking the throttle and revs right up. And then you let go of the throttle, it comes right back down. Maybe takes a couple seconds to level, that's okay. A lot of guys get freaked out about that. That don't bother me. And then it settles to a nice smooth idle. That's when you know you got it running clean and crisp. All right, guys, I'm going to adjust these mixture screws and go from there.